Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning to those of you coming from Europe. Good afternoon for those of you joining us from Singapore. We are very happy to have you here today on this session that we are having. My name is Sophia Ross, and together with Enterprise Singapore, we have prepared this international training program with focus in relationships between European and Singaporean enterprises and companies, because we know how important it is to establish international relationships, but we know it also can be very challenging to do so. So we have a very interesting program today that we are very happy to share with you, and hopefully we can help you achieve those successful collaborations. We have a very ambitious agenda for today that we're going to go through in just about 2 hours. So first of all, we're going to have an overview of Singapore's agri-food innovation ecosystem by Enterprise Singapore, followed by an intellectual property rights discussion by the European IPR Help Desk. Then we will hear about some very successful collaborations directly from Live Fresh and Esco Aster that I'm sure you will find very interesting. Then Grow will join us to tell us a bit more about collaborations, opportunities between Singapore and Europe, as we were saying. And before we finish, we will have a lesson on how to navigate the cultural differences to make sure that those collaborations and relationships are very successful. We will then have an open talk, an opportunity to raise questions. And then we will be wrapping up and closing and moving on to the platform to have a very successful matchmaking on the Global Foodture community platform. So this event today is framed under the Global Foodture European project, which has an aim to help you through different workshops with different topics and these international training sessions and missions abroad to help you widen your opportunities and your connections worldwide. So I'm sure you will really enjoy the session. I really hope you do. We've worked very hard to be able to give you all these today, and I'm very excited about what we're going to do and how it's looking. Because we have a very tight schedule, we have activated a Q&A box that you will be able to see below on your Zoom. So please, we'll ask you to address any questions on that box, and we will address them during the Q&A after the session. And if you could please state your name, your company name, the speaker you're addressing the question to, and the question itself, that will be very helpful so that we can collect them all at the end of the session. Now, without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Ms. Tracy Ann Ying Xuan, who will be sharing the agri-food tech ecosystem with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophia. So I assume you'll be helping us click the slides, yeah?
Would you prefer to share your screen? I will say that will be easier so that you have control over the slides.
No, we're good. So every time I say next slide, you can go ahead with that.
Okay, what I can also do is I can actually give you remote control so that you will be able to click on your computer without having to share your screen at all. Would that help?
Actually, yeah, sure, you can pass us the control rights.
I think you have the control now.
Okay.
So you would need to click on the presentation, and then you'll be able to use it as you were sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Sophia, could you pass me the right? Sorry, I will do it for me and Ying-Xuan. It's
yeah,
easier
of course.
that way. Thank you.
There you go. So it should have.
Yeah, you have it.
Okay. Yeah, Ying-Xuan, whenever you're ready.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're really happy to see all of you today. So today we will be presenting to you the Singapore's agri-food tech ecosystem. A little bit of a background of who Enterprise Singapore is. We are an economic stat board under the Singapore government, under the branch of Ministry of Trade and Industry, with the mission of championing local enterprise growth. We support them with productivity, innovation, as well as internationalization needs. We're really proud to have opened, 36 overseas centers all over the world so that we can create stronger bilateral links and help our Singapore enterprises expand over global markets, as well as to support foreign companies into Singapore using us as a launchpad to Asia as well. Next. So a little bit about our Singapore food story. Why is it so important to us? If you don't already know, Singapore is a really small country. And because of that, we import more than 90% of our food into Singapore to feed our citizens. We have less than 1% of our land dedicated to agricultural opportunities. However, we see that as, rather than a vulnerability, we see that as an opportunity. And how we do that is that we leverage capital, we leverage technology as well as innovation to build ourselves into an international model and enabler of self-sustainable cities. We have three things that we really look at. We want to develop ourselves into a highly productive and resource-efficient agri-tech hub that produces safe food, sustainable and high-quality produce. We see ourselves as the preferred test bidding hub, especially for the region, to generate innovative agri-food tech solutions for export to the region and to the world. Lastly, we hold ourselves very highly to standards and trust. And so we want to build a strong agriculture community that will enable us to do so. So the agri-food tech industry is a really promising growth sector, but Singapore is only 57 years old. And over the years, we have tried to build ourselves up into a country that has a lot of agri-food tech capabilities. What we do is that we leverage adjacent sectors, our Singapore strengths in chemicals, biology, as well as robotics. So we look at specialty chemicals over here to create our inputs. We look at biotechnology, we look at automation, robotics, and how can we pivot these companies into solving some of our most pressing food issues here in Singapore. Next. Today, we have a really, really strong agri-food tech ecosystem comprising of a diverse players across the value chain, all the ways from startups to our agri-commodity multinational corporations. As you can see, Singapore is, the preferred hub for MNCs to situate their base and their HQ here. So we do work really closely with them and try our best to create collaboration opportunities to benefit our startups, such as Syngenta, Bayer, Olam, and Wilma. We have our farmers, our traders, as well as our downstream food processors like Shiok Meats and Sophie's Bionutrients that I think most people will be more aware of. Horizontally, we have anchored quite a significant amount of ecosystem players that can help a startup grow if you were to be here in Singapore. For example, our research and development labs, our institutes of higher learning and universities. We have anchored five global best-in-class accelerators, such as Grow Accelerator that you will listen to towards the end later, as well as certain technical agencies that can support you in our regulatory frameworks. So today in the agri-tech industry specifically, we look at creating better food for more people with a less footprint. We have championed certain startups that have made us really proud, such as Sustinia, Singro, and Barramundi group that have already made international presence. We have our input players, such as our insect protein players that generate animal feed as well as frass. We have precision agriculture players and also in a horizontal stream technology farm to fork traceability players here. So a little bit of an overview of the startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem. We we have attracted quite a growing corpus of investors, especially at the early stage from seed to Series B of investors here in Singapore. We have seen a rise in venture funding, specifically for the agri-food tech ecosystem. And some of our notable deals include Shock Meats that have raised, Series A of US $30 million, as well as Sustainable Agriculture that have also raised a Series A and are looking to raise the Series B round. Moving forward. So quickly to let you guys know what you can tap on if you do come into Singapore, do tap on the expertise to develop startups. We have, as I said, anchored some really good accelerators here in Singapore that can help you supercharge your growth. We have our early stage startup investments. Seeds Capital is an investment vehicle of Enterprise Singapore that defrays the risk of third-party investors by dollar matching their investments into early stage startups. We do that because we want to encourage investors to put their dollars into, the agri-food tech industry. We have strong R&D capabilities in terms of our universities, as well as our polytechnics, as well as research institutions. So we really hope for our startups, as well as both local and foreign, to work with them. Do tap on our significant MNC presence as well, who have been really active in our ecosystem to run co-innovation programs as well as open innovation programs with startups. So yeah, I guess Singapore is really a hub to access global platforms and events as well. We host a lot of high-profile flagship events to showcase yourself to the world from Singapore. And lastly, we do run Global Innovation Alliance programs. So specifically for Europe, we have Eureka Global Stars, Germany Singapore program, France Singapore program. For startups like you guys over here who want to co-innovate with a Singaporean startup that we can fund using our existing schemes as well. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ing Xuan. So hopefully that wasn't too dense first thing in the morning, but I'll try to do a good job to summarize the food side of the house. So just a recap, my name is Tracy. I handle more of our food manufacturers and food tech startups. So let's do a quick deep dive of our industry. So even though we are a very small country, we like to think that our food manufacturing base is quite vibrant. We have over 1,000 enterprises in some of your key food sectors, such as dairy, meat, seafood, and so on and so forth. And given our size, actually, most of the food that we produce in Singapore is actually exported to the region. However, we are seeing a rise in new, very innovative startups. And to date, we have grown about more than 150 startups. And even beyond the region, many of them are also looking to Europe as their next markets, particularly those in more innovative areas such as alternative proteins. Just to give you a snapshot, in case you haven't been to Singapore, I haven't seen some of the brands. These are some of our key homegrown champions, some of our up-and-coming startups. And of course, this is strongly supported by some of our adjacent industries, whether it's in terms of packaging, flavor houses, as well as ingredients. So I think Ing Xuan already mentioned that in Singapore, we try to leverage Singapore's R&D strengths in biotech and chemicals. And so we are strongly supported by our research institutes here, be it both private as well as public players. This is quite similar to the concept of centers of innovation that you have in Europe. So Singapore is very small, so I will send this presentation over so you can have a look. We only have about 5, I think, major universities here, so it should be quite easy to navigate. In terms of where Singapore sees ourselves in the global landscape, we really see ourselves as being a front runner of the future of food, particularly in our region, where we want to lead Asia with better food, as well as being better in terms of nutrition as well. And so this comes in 2 specific strategies for food. One is, of course, being a trendsetter and tastemaker in the region. So this could be in terms of translating certain novel concepts quicker to industry, as well as pioneering some of the new hardware and software solutions in the agri-food chain. And secondly, is also being a production capital, particularly in high-value manufacturing. So later on, you'll hear from a very interesting company called Esco Esther in Singapore, who is one of our CDMOs for cell-cultured meats. And so this is one of the areas we're trying to build up in Singapore. So I think Ying-Xuan has already done a good job to cover why Singapore is an attractive ecosystem, but in case you needed even more reasons, maybe I could just share a few more. I think one of the things that we are very proud of is the comprehensive food R&D as well as shared infrastructure we have built up. We know that especially for startups or even traditional SMEs, some of these new technologies can be quite inaccessible and expensive to use. And so for Singapore, one of the strategies we have is to build shared facilities, such as using the high pressure processing facility. And we also have a center of innovation specific to food in Singapore called FIRC that has helped quite a few local as well as foreign companies to reformulate products that are more suited for the Asian consumer. So if all of you are familiar with Eat Just from the US, for their entry into Singapore, they actually leverage FIRC to customize the flavors for the consumers in this region. Secondly, I'm not sure if you've been to Singapore, but perhaps you've heard that we're the first country in the world to approve lab-grown meat for sale. And this is a very strategic move by Singapore to be a front runner in terms of regulations. The Singapore Food Agency is our regulation agency that does a lot to talk to other regulators in the world to make sure that Singapore regulations are up to par, and also working with other countries to make sure that we can get all our startups to commercialize quickly. In terms of our global innovation and strong investor landscape, I think Ying-Xuan has already covered that. So I won't touch on that further. But another thing that I would like to share today is also that even though Enterprise Singapore is one government agency, we are actually a family of agencies that helps to support your food innovation journeys in the region. So perhaps I'll bring us through very quickly about what each of the agencies do. Because there are quite a few agencies, how we work together is that we have formed this whole of government platform that we call Food Innovate with really two purposes. One is to equip Singapore-based companies with resources to create foods for the future, as well as to position Singapore as a choice of location for creating food for Asia. And so this comes with a few agencies which Enterprise Singapore helps to lead. Some of the sister agencies that perhaps will be most relevant to you is firstly EDB, who is our sister agency to help to attract MNCs as well as LLEs into Singapore. We also have A-Star, who is our National Research Institute and helps to drive a lot of this futuristic research. And of course, I talked a little bit about the Singapore Food Agency, but for the companies here doing any sites of novel foods, they would probably be the most important contact for your first entry into Singapore. And so together, these are the four services that we help to provide and help to support both our local companies as well as overseas companies. First, in terms of building a knowledge base, we know that particularly in the area of novel foods, there is a lot of things that has yet to discover, and we believe that the way to grow it is to really learn not just within our own local system, but with other countries as well. So for example, in alternative proteins, when Singapore was still quite new to it a few years ago, we actually did an innovation scan with Food Valley, specifically to scan what is the landscape in our both regions and how we can work together. Last year, Ying-Xuan also worked with Food Valley specifically on insect protein. So these are certain ways that we help to build knowledge together with our global friends. Secondly, we also help to drive co-innovation efforts, as we know that innovation can't be done alone. Ying-Xuan shared the huge agri-food map together, and we try our best to drive co-innovation efforts across the value chains. One of the ways that we do so is through some of our co-innovation programs, such as Eureka, which I think Ying-Xuan already talked about. Thirdly, in terms of cultivating disruptive tech, this is really where Singapore comes in quite strategically to grow certain agri-food tech areas. So for Ying-Xuan, for agri-tech, Ying-Xuan has talked about it. I will talk a few areas that our food tech companies are growing in. And lastly is also to help to provide infrastructure, particularly for our startups who don't have the capex to build their own facilities, as well as for foreign companies who maybe don't want to build a facility in Singapore and want to find, a certain shared facility or partner that they can help to do the third-party contract manufacturing. So together, that's what keeps us busy every day. And we also hope that we can support your companies in this way if you choose to come to Singapore. So as I was mentioning, for food, we are quite targeted in terms of certain areas that we want to grow. And so these are some of the areas that we chose to focus on. Of course, first is in terms of alternative proteins. Secondly, it's in terms of specialized nutrition, particularly for both the young and the old, given that in Southeast Asia, we have a large growing middle class with a very young population. But at the same time, in more developed countries such as Singapore, we have a very fast aging population with changing nutritional needs. Thirdly is the area of health and wellness, so creating better for you products. In line with sustainability, we've also been looking at food waste valorization across different use cases. And lastly, we're also building adjacencies to areas such as preservation technologies and packaging solutions. Yeah, and so these are some of the startups that we've been growing in the areas I've been talking about. Later on, you'll get to hear from Esco Esther, so I'll let them share their experience about being a startup in Singapore and how they've kind of worked with the rest to grow our vibrant food tech ecosystem. In terms of infrastructure, I just wanted to put a short slide here to just show you, even though Singapore is small, we like to think that we've built a big, robust infrastructure facilities that can really suit your needs, whether you are at R&D, pilot scale, or even looking to scale up some of your production for Singapore. We have the facilities here, so do feel free to approach us and we'll point you to the right direction. Yeah. And so I understand that some of us here might be thinking about joining the Global Future Mission to Singapore. These are some of the events you can look forward to. Perhaps one I will stress more emphasis on is the Singapore International Agri-Food Week, which is SIW in short. And so for this is really our marquee agri-food event for the region. You'll be hearing from some of our top food experts in the region. A lot of global CIOs and CEOs do come to join us for the dialogue to see what's going on here. It includes both a conference as well as exhibition component, so you can really see, look, experience, and meet our Singapore ecosystem. So we do hope that you'll join us in November for this. Also just now we spoke briefly a bit about Eureka. If for those of you who are already ready to look for co-innovation partners in Singapore, this is one of the modalities that you can tap on for funding if you are choosing to have a local partner in Singapore. And I think that was a lot of information. I think in short, we look forward to more partnerships between Singapore and Europe, and do feel free to approach Ying Xuan or myself if you have any questions. So thank you for your time, and I hope today will be an interesting session.
Thank you very much, Tracy and Ying Xuan. That was lots of opportunities for our European companies, so I'm sure there is a match for everyone. It's very exciting. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now I would like to introduce you to Elio De Tullio, who will be sharing with us about the IPR challenges and issues. So Elio, the floor is yours. I don't know if you'd like to share your screen. Would you like me to grant you control on these slides?
Good morning. Well, I can take the control and share my screen. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
If you allow me to share. Yeah. So can you see my screen?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, great. So today we will speak about the protection of intellectual property in Singapore, and of course we will refer to the food sector. My name is Elio De Tullio. I have a slide afterwards to present myself, to introduce myself. But first of all, I would like to introduce the Southeast Asia IP SME Help Desk. That is a European Commission initiative aimed at supporting EU SMEs to sell products and services in Southeast Asia in a safe manner. Indeed, intellectual property should be considered at the very beginning of any commercial activity, so before starting any trade in foreign countries, in particular in Southeast Asia. And then we'll see why I'm saying that. The services of the Southeast Asia IP SME Help Desk are free services. You have an inquiry helpline, a website, plus newsletters. publications, e-learning, and business tools. And of course, the Southeast Asia IPSME Help Desk organized several training workshops, live webinar, and attend other webinars like this one. So if you like to enter into the Singapore market and you have specific IP-related issue or question, you can consult our helpline. You can see here the email address. You will receive an answer by IT expert within 3 working days. It is free of charge. You will have a kind of idea about how to afford the Singapore market. You have also the possibility to request a one-to-one virtual meeting, and any SMEs is welcome to, any SMEs from European Union or Norway, Iceland, or Liechtenstein is welcome to address questions to this inquiry helpline. So as mentioned before, my name is Elio De Tullio. I'm an Italian lawyer and trademark attorney. I have more than 20 years experience in the IP sector, and we, with the Tullian partner, I'm the founder of the IP tech law firm, the Tullian Partners. We provide services in IP sector for SMEs, in particular in China and Southeast Asian countries. How to protect your IP in Singapore. So this is the agenda of today. We will first speak about the general introduction of protection of IP rights in Singapore. Then we will go a little bit deeper in the single IP rights, so trademarks, designs, patents, and copyrights. We will speak about commercializing and licensing based on IP rights. Then we have some case studies and tips and takeaway messages. So what are the basics, the pillars of intellectual property rights? When we speak about IP rights, we refer to trademarks that are, let's say, the translation, the legal translation of brands, patents, design, copyrights. The first principle to consider is the principle of first to file. So you are kindly requested and recommended to file a trademark, a patent, a design application before starting any trade in foreign countries, in particular in Southeast Asia. There is a kind of protection for, let's say, only used trademarks, for instance. We will see this afterwards, but it is highly advisable to register first before starting any trade. Before registering your trademark, you should, it is recommendable to carry out preliminary searches in order to assess novelty and the legal requirements of, for instance, invention or trademarks or designs. So it's very important to understand the state of the art before starting any filing registration process. Another principle is the principle of territoriality. Even if you will listen to the reference to international protection of trademarks, patents, designs, we are talking about a bunch of national rights. So it is very important to consider this territoriality of IP rights. The other principle, very important principle, is the principle of national treatments, that provides that each state must grant the same protection to national of other states that it grants to its own national. So it is a way to assess, let's say, a fair respect of IP rights in international trade. And so this reciprocity is a guarantee that your rights, if correctly filed, registered, and maintained, will receive the same treatment in foreign countries and even in Southeast Asia. Another principle is the limitation of time and scope. So different IP rights have different duration. For patents, you have 20 years. For trademarks, you have 10 years, renewable indefinitely. For designs, we will see that there are different durations according to each jurisdiction. Singapore has benefited from a strong IP regime and continues to build a trustworthy ecosystem. So it's very active at international level. It is a member of the agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, the so-called TRIPS agreement, and accords a strong protection to all IP rights. So it's member of the Paris Convention, that is the most ancient convention on IP rights, dated 1883, then to the PCT, the Patent Cooperation Treaty about patents, the Hague Agreements related to designs, the Copyright Treaty, so the Berne Convention, the NICE Agreement about classification of goods and services for trademark. Has joined the World Trade Organization on 1995, and once again has a first-to-file system, and you can also manage your rights through the very newly introduced app that is the one you will find here at this link. Let's go now to speak about single IP rights. When we refer to trademark, we refer to, once again, brands. So any brand that you like to use for promoting your company or for promoting your products and services. So a trademark in Singapore does not have necessarily to be used before registration, but is highly advisable to file and register the trademark before starting any trade. In any case, the applicant has to make a declaration of clear intention to use the trademark and must use it in commerce within 5 years from registration. Otherwise, the trademark can lapse for non-use. Registered trademarks enjoy additional statutory protection under the Trademarks Act, but in the absence of registration, a trademark can be protected under the common law tort of passing off, provided that 3 factors are respected. So the goodwill, that the defendant has made a misrepresentation to the public, suggesting, for instance, that their goods or services are in some way associated or connected with the ones of the claimant, and there was a kind of damage, let's say a proof damage to the brand's reputation. So let's say that it's a little bit more difficult to act before the court for the respect of only used trademarks. It is possible to register trademark, let's say non-conventional trademarks like 3D signs and sounds. We will see in next slide how many unconventional trademark can be registered in Singapore. The registration procedure takes about 12 months, and the duration is 10 years renewed indefinitely. Here you have an idea. This is also a slide coming from IPOS, that is the Intellectual Property Office of Singapore, that is very active even at the international level. As you can see, you have in Singapore the possibility to file and register collective and certification trademarks, figurative trademarks, but also sound, movement, holograms, colors, and 3D shapes. Let's switch to copyright now. Through copyright, it is possible to protect, for instance, audiovisual products, literary work, publication, also somehow software and let's say food recipes. The protection is conferred automatically to the author. Singapore is a member of the Berne Convention for the Protection of Literary and Artistic Work, even if there is no system of copyright registration in Singapore, because let's say the protection starts independently from any formality, I would say. The duration of protection depends on the nature of the copyright work and lasts generally until 70 years from the death of the author. Of course, there are some requirements to consider in order to have the protection, to enjoy the protection of copyrights. For instance, it must be an original work, an original, let's say, text or audiovisual product, and it should be expressed in a tangible form. Once you have the protection of copyrights, you can include a copyright symbol like the C you can see in this slide on your work, and the symbol acts as a notice of your claim to the work. The use of the symbol could be very useful in case of proceedings before courts. You also have a new Copyright Act in Singapore. I will not spend too much time for this. It's a work that you know that in 2021, this new Copyright Act came into effect, the Act introduced new rights and exceptions to provide more recognition for creators. For instance, creators and performers will have a new right to be identified, and there have been introduced new exceptions to copyright infringement for use of works for computational data and analysis. Let's switch to patents. In case of food sector, patents can protect, for instance, processing food methods or other kind of method and processes related to foods. In Singapore, there is only one official type of patent, the invention patent, so there is no protection for utility models that are considered petty patents or small patents. The registration, indeed, of petty patents is not recognized. The legal requirements are novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability. And once the patent is filed, the date of filing is the starting date for the rights related to these patents. It is highly advisable before filing a patent application to carry out a patent search in order to understand and to assess the state of the art, and in order to start this patenting process in a very aware way, so to be able to allocate resources for these steps. In case of patents, but also for trademarks, it is very important to know that the registration process can start from the country of origin according to the Paris Convention. So you can start to file an application in your country of origin and claim the priority. So in this case, you can extend your right in any country of the world, claiming the date of the first filing in the country of origin. So for instance, you can file an application in European Union, or you can file a European patent, and you can then extend the protection in Singapore or in other Southeast Asian countries, claiming the date of the first filing. This is in order to avoid interferences in the interim period between the filing and the extension. So in Singapore, the overall process for registration takes about 24 months, depending on the complexity of the invention. Patent protection will begin once again from the date of the application, and then Singapore also adopted, with some amendments of 2017, new rules for a grace period provision that excludes certain disclosure from forming part of the state of the art, as long as the Singapore patent application is filed within 12 months of the disclosure. So in this case, you can, let's say, receive some possibility to disclose your invention, and even being able to file a valid patent application. The protection lasts for 20 years from the date of the filing, subject to the payment of annuities. So annuities are the way to maintain your rights, starting from the 4th year. So it's really important to allocate enough resources to maintain your rights even after the filing. Design can be used in the food sector in order to protect packaging of products. It is useful to protect the ornamental, the aesthetic characteristics of the shape, pattern, or configuration of a physical or non-physical product. Not all industrial design can be registered, but in order to be registerable, a design must be novel and must have individual character. As you can see, the protection of design lasts for a maximum of 15 years from the date of the filing. So this is different from the European Union system, in which the protection lasts 5 years and can be renewed for other 5 times for a maximum duration of 25 years. In Singapore, you can file up to 50 designs within a single application. Singapore has several accelerated programs in order to speed up your application. And so in case you use this accelerated timelines for the different IP rights, you can receive the grant of a patent in 6 months, of a trademark in 3 months, of design in 1 month. So this here you can find this link, any information about the acceleration programs of the IPOs. Even trade secrets can be protected in Singapore. Sometimes trade secrets can be used in order to protect recipes or other, let's say, know-how developed in your company. A trade secret is usually defined as information that is not generally known to the public, so it has been started and kept as confidential, confers some sort of economic benefit on its holder, so has an economic value and is subject to reasonable efforts, so measures to keep it secret. In Singapore, the protection of trade secrets can be achieved if the following criteria are met. So the information must not be available to the public, must offer real and potential advantages to the right holder, and must be able to prove that these measures, technical, legal, and physical measures, has been implemented in the company. So it is really a matter of, let's say, internal procedures and protocols in any company and in any SME. So in this case, trade secrets can be enforced before courts and can also confers to the holder unlimited period of exclusive rights. In Singapore, in 2022, it was approved and passed a bill with some IP amendments. So this is also, let's say, a kind of reminder for you in order to be aware that some key changes were introduced in the IP legal framework. They are not so relevant in terms of what SMEs should know about trading products and services in Singapore, but it's worth that you know these amendments. Here we are, some case studies. This is a very famous case study related to Ferrero. In this case, another company, Sarica 2007, promoted this a new espresso drink called Nutello, which contained espresso cocoa milk, and also this product was promoted as an espresso with lashing of Nutella. And so Ferrero sued this company for trademark infringement, providing that there was a visual and oral similarity of the trademark, and the goods were also similar. This is a typical case in trademark disputes. The court in this case affirmed that infringement and dilution of the well-known trademark Nutella was ascertained, and confirmed that the decision about the reputation of Nutella. So Nutella was considered highly distinctive, well-known trademark, and Nutella did not diverge enough from the trademark Nutella. Of course, in this case, it is also a typical case in which there is a compensation of damages, and the court stated that damage exists not only when there is a loss of money, but as in this case, if the trademark owner loses a future business opportunity, and this was the case. How Ferrero understood that there was this kind of, let's say, risk in the market, because it started as the majority of companies dealing with IP rights and activated a surveillance system in order to be informed promptly about any kind of filing of similar trademark or even use of similar trademarks on the market. And in this case, Ferrero was able to react against this infringement, and also to avoid lots of future business opportunities. I will skip the other case about Nestlé. I will just spend a few words about dealing with local partners in Singapore. The main way to deal with the local partners is entering into contracts. So let's say the best way is licensing IP rights in Singapore. There is also the possibility of entering into joint ventures that is a kind of stronger way to liaise with local partners. It is highly advisable to start any negotiation after the signature of an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, or also an NNN, that is a non-disclosure, non-union, non-circumvention. So it's a way to have a stronger protection of your IP rights before starting any negotiation. Of course, before starting negotiation, it's also advisable to file your trademark, patent, and design in Singapore. In order to implement your IP commercialization strategy, you should assess a potential strategy that can include the business context, the type of IP right, the risk, including third parties, threats, the IP management, and the licensing. And licensing agreements are the best way to authorize third parties to use your rights in Singapore. And here you will find in the slides 10 main and let's say typical contractual clauses that can be included in IP licensing agreements. So, for instance, the type of license, the compensation, the duration of the contracts, but also other limits to the licensee's rights. You can also include some non-competition covenants, and if these restrictions are considered fair and reasonable under local law, they will be considered valid in Singapore. Some watch outs and tips. So start protecting your IPR before entering the market. Prepare a proper strategy to develop your IP right in Singapore, but also starting from European Union. Carry out your IP preliminary searches. Take care of the first filing. Don't waste the opportunity to file a first application in a correct way. Protect your world trademark also in local languages, if any. Collect all documents concerning the use of the mark in order to have a kind of let's say archive, and to protect the database, to have a database available for any use. Monitor the markets and competitors' behaviors in order to react promptly. Activate a surveillance system. Monitor IP gazettes and legal actions, and verify the compliance of contracts, providing the local legislation as applicable law. Because if you will find yourself in a dispute, you should react before local courts. Here you have also the reference to some additional resources. You can find them on the Southeast Asia IP SME Helpdesk website. And of course, we are available for questions even after the webinar. And we would like to receive your feedback. So I will leave for some seconds this slide in the background. And if you scan it, you can give us a feedback about this presentation and the services of the Southeast Asia IP SME Helpdesk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elio. That was very interesting. I'm sure our attendees learned a lot and found it very, very useful. Just a quick note, because I can see we had a question before. We will be sharing all the presentations and the recording after the session on the Global Foodture platform, so you will be able to access it afterwards. And now I would like to introduce all of you to Karthik Rajan. He is the founder and CEO of Live Fresh, and he will be sharing with us his very successful collaboration story with Liberty Produce. So Karthik, leave the stage to you now. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to some. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So my name is Karthik. I'm founder and CEO of Live Fresh. We are a high precision controlled environment farming company here based out of Singapore. And what I'm going to share about today really is a little bit on where I see the sectors and some of the work that we are doing in collaboration with Liberty Produce, which is a UK-based company, in trying to get us to the future. So, obviously, food production, urban farming is not new to most of us here. But really, I just wanted to set some context as to why we are in existence. So food production obviously is facing a lot of challenges, be it in terms of resources or in terms of just the sheer volume of demand that we need to service. I was reading somewhere that we need to produce the same amount of food in the next 80 years as we've done in the last 8,000 years. So that's the magnitude of the problem that we're facing. And at the same time, of course, we have lesser resources to be able to do this, this magnitude of increase, as well as catering to consumers that are demanding for fresher, more nutritious food, and they care about where their food comes from. My own view of the sector is a little bit mixed because I think that there are many innovations in this sector, but I think there are some things that we collectively as a sector haven't gotten right. So I do think that there's a lot of over engineering and sometimes even tech for tech's sake sort of investment in this particular sector. We haven't seen any winners, like true winners, emerge out yet on a global scale. There's a little bit of a consumer being missed out in the picture the way we see it, because a lot of time it's build and they'll come. So we have this fancy new toy, this technology, let's deploy it. And we know it can do wonders, but is the consumer really caring or wanting all of that? Does it really matter to them? Of course, it's extremely capital intensive, and we seem to be always on fundraising mode, unfortunately, and less focus on operations. But that's true for most of the agtech startups today. And is it environmentally as promising as it's made out to be, from an energy consumption point of view and so on? So, to be honest, even within this slide is really where all the opportunities exist for this industry as well. And these are the areas that we are looking to sort of bridge over to sort of come out better. Sorry. So our view is that we need to look at or approach this industry in a more consumer-centric manner. So keeping wellness at the center of it rather than tech in the center of it. So we're saying, let's look at technology that is optimized, which essentially every technology that you adopt should lead to an outcome that is desired by the consumer. So whether it is in terms of better food, higher nutrition, or it is in terms of just getting it faster to them, and so on. So what does the consumer really care about is what we should care about, and that's where we should invest. It's a real business. Sorry, I'll just get a grab of a cup of water. So it's a real business and not a valuation game. So really we're talking about how do we make it more operationally positive from the get-go. A lot of focus on wellness and hence the selection of crops as well, which is more not just getting the best yield out, but also getting the best nutrition expression out of what we are able to grow. Because there's a lot of cool things that we can influence, but can we influence them to a specific outcome? Can we kind of channel them towards these good outcomes? And of course, wider usages and uses. Now, better nutrition. So our quest was, what is it that matters to the consumer? And hence, what can we do about achieving that? And one of the things that we found before, we really started on this company's direction was that nutrition plays a huge top of mind role in consumers' minds. So of course, price and availability and some of those consistency, those are things that matter more to the distribution channel than to the consumer. But to the consumer, clean, trustworthy produce, fast delivery, and richer in nutrition and availability of nutrition was what stood out. And we said, look, based on how we grow, we are already clean in the sense that we don't use any pesticide. We are a controlled environment farm. We are a local farm just at the, within Singapore, and hence the trust factor is higher. I mean, given Singapore's logistics and some of the infrastructure that you heard about before, so it's not very difficult to get the produce to the consumer or to the consumer's plate fairly quickly. So these two boxes were, we kind of had an inherent advantage already, or we already had ticked. So the third one, which was vegetables rich in nutrients and minerals, or a rather a healthier output, was the one that we said let's focus on. And incidentally, that also was the highest in terms of what consumers wanted to see. We also then found that what is today available and often touted, and I'm not sure if I'm ruffling some feathers here, but kale, which is often considered the king of greens or the superfood, is actually pales in comparison when compared with some of the other Asian greens that are natively locally consumed here in Southeast Asia. So if you look at Tyson, for example, it has 10 times the amount of folates as compared to kale, or tango, which has 2 times more the iron, or vitamin K, or if you look at amaranth, which has more vitamin K, or kangkong, which is often called water spinach, more magnesium, and so on. So there are multiple examples of varieties, cultivars, that are locally available and which provide a great boost of nutrition. So that was a good starting point to begin with, to select the right cultivar. We also then realized that there are, given that we are a controlled environment farm and we are able to influence the inputs that go to the plants, we are then also have some influence over the outcomes that we achieve. So if we look at the inputs, so we can play around with lights, or we can control the lights. We can control the nutrition that's given into these crops as we grow them, the temperature, the gas composition, which is typically just CO2 or humidity, and plant material. So depending on which stage, what germplasm you use, etc. So if you play around with just these combinations, you have almost 60,000 variables or combinations of variables that can be achieved, which could influence various outcomes. I mean, yield is the most favored one by everyone because that directly impacts your bottom line. But then there's also flavor, aroma, there's nutritional value that can be influenced. So this was kind of the genesis of our partnership or our participation in the Eureka program itself. So we were looking for partners who could use a hybrid technology, which is essentially not just a vertical farm, but a vertical farm combined with a greenhouse, and look at influencing some of these attributes and come up with protocols that we can use to grow the Asian green crop, which are inherently high in nutrition, but make them express higher bioavailability of those nutrition in the end. So that really was the core of the project. The collaboration was not just a company-to-company collaboration. So we had 2 IHLs, or Institutes of High Learning, as well involved. So we had James Hutton Institute together with Liberty Produce, and we had Live Fresh here together with Republic Polytechnic in Singapore. So it was a great combination of both academia and commercial interest in that sense. We are still about halfway through this engagement. As you can imagine, something like this, where we are trying to influence or trying to modify secondary metabolism in the plants using these variables, does take a few iterations and just does take a while. But our initial experiments have been quite promising. So we said we will do 2 crops to begin with and then expand it with the others on a commercial scale. So the 2 crops we chose was amaranth, which is a very, very staple crop in Singapore. The consumption numbers are quite high, and bok choy as well. These 2 come in the top 3 leafy greens consumed in Singapore. So we started with the simpler ones, just changing light spectrum and looking at morphology and flavor. And then we further extended that to looking at nutrition expression itself. What we found was that by changing various parameters, almost 80% of the secondary metabolism processes or secondary metabolites could be influenced using this. Now, we're still not reached a stage where we could say that for this crop, this is the most ideal and also the most commercially viable protocol that we use to take forward. But we'll get there in the next 6 months or so. And this is just one area that we're starting with. There are multiple other things that we want to look at as well. So we also know that given our focus on Asian greens, that the availability of high quality germplasm, which is, coated, treated, primed, pelleted, that ecosystem does not exist. And it's something that we are looking to overcome. So we are doing some local treatment of the seeds to increase the germination rates, etc. But I would love to work with partners who've done some work on this. Robotics and automation is a constant theme for any controlled environment agriculture entity. So we're constantly looking at improving labor productivity and throughput. We're also working on extending into non-edibles, so extractions, looking at active ingredients from the crops that we grow. So not just growing them for selling as edibles, but for other uses as well. And of course, smart packaging is an area, because even if we move out of edibles will stay and branded retail will remain a large focus for the company. So that's another area that we're always looking to collaborate in. And I'm happy to have a discussion with anyone who has solutions around these as well. Yep, so that's my time. I'm Karthik Rajan, founder and CEO of LiveFresh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karthik. Hopefully we inspired some of our attendees today.
Right.
That was very, very interesting. Thank you very much for your time. But now I would like to introduce all of you to Alvin. Mr. Alvin is the Director of Corporate Development in ESCO Astor, and he will be talking to us about their collaboration with Meatable. So Alvin, if you'd like to share your screen, the floor is all yours.
Yep, thank you so much. Very good morning to all of you in Europe and very good afternoon if you're based out of Singapore. My name is Alvin and I'm helping out with the corporate development efforts here at ESCO Astor. In a few seconds, I'm going to share my screen so I can walk you through what we do here at ESCO in itself. All right, so I presume all of you are okay with seeing the screen on my end?
Definitely. Thank you.
All right, that's great. So just going to walk you through about what we do here at ESCO Astor. We are an independent affiliate to the ESCO Life Sciences Group. Some of you may find this familiar because some of our equipment, especially if you're using laboratory equipment, some of these equipment could be found in the laboratories that you're operating in right now. The parent company, ESCO Life Sciences Group, was set up since the late 70s. We started out building clean rooms for the semiconductor industry here in Singapore and Southeast Asia. By the late 90s, we started pivoting towards life sciences tools and equipment. Because the tools and equipment in the parent business have been supplied to clients such as Big Pharma, Big Farming, Sygenta, etc. I think along the time there's always these questions or these queries about whether ESCO could do more than just supplying tools and equipment. So much so that could we do a bit of contract R&D, contract manufacturing, etc., etc. And based on that demand, ESCO Astor was set up in the late in 2018, initially to in response to the demands to have a contract development, contract manufacturing organization that will be focused in the biologic space in itself. And I think, of course, as the years went along, I think ESCO Astor became more well-known in the novel food space. And on that part itself, in 2020, the world's first cultivated meat product by Eat Just Good Meat received full regulatory approval by the Singapore government, in fact, by the Singapore Food Agency in itself. But to date, we are privileged at ESCO Astor to be the contract manufacturer and contract development and manufacturing partner for Eat Just Good Meat to produce that slaughter-free cultivated meat that has received full approval. And of course, over the next few years, we've gathered some of our own accolades. We are the first in the world to receive full regulatory approval by a competent government authority to produce cultivated meat in itself. And also at the same time, we have received the ISO 22000 and also the FSSC 22000 food safety certifications. And I'm sure all of you who are in the food sector would know that these are one of the stringent standards, globally recognized standards for food production in the safety aspect in itself. If you have the chance to visit Singapore, whether it's through one of the upcoming accelerator programs, welcome you to come by. We are based in Ayer Rajah Crescent, which is Singapore's startup innovation precincts here. Our facilities here in Ayer Rajah Crescent are at clean room standards. We are adapting a lot of the best practices to CGMP because of our roots in the biologics biopharma business itself. We do have 6 suites that we can produce cultivated meats and novel food products up to 500 liter scales. We do have limits as to the weight bearing limit and also the ceiling limit in itself, and that's the largest bioreactor tanks that we can use to produce cultivated meat. But of course, some of you out here might be of interest for us to produce at a larger scale. And on that note, we do have an upcoming facility that's closer to the airport. We're getting it ready by second half of 2024. That facility will allow some of the cultivated meat companies who are coming on board who want to scale up and produce beyond 500 liter scales. And we'll be using where we'll have production lines, and that will enable the production volume of bioreactors to be 30,000 to 50,000 liters thereabouts. Today, we are supposed to speak about our partnership with Meatable, and we are pleased to have Meatable. We work very closely with our friends in the Netherlands, Meatable, to produce the cultivated pork in Singapore. And of course, that milestone was also being recognized last year in the presence of the Dutch ambassador to Singapore itself. So in Singapore, we are working closely with Meatable to scale up their biomanufacturing so that it can be produced to the regulatory standards of the Singapore Food Agency. And also in other markets, ASCO Ester will be working closely with Meatable itself to also help them to enable their food products to reach regulatory approval and to scale up the production in other countries that would be opening up for cultivated meat. But more as an above and beyond that, we do have our bio process core services that we want to enable our clients, whether you're a fast-growing cultivated meat startup or you're a fast-growing novel foods cellular agri startup company itself. We do have a variety of services that we can help you scale up and also at the same time produce enough to get the regulatory approval, and also we will help you with some of the filing if there is a sufficient interest in that area in itself. But also we do value add to the cultivated meat ecosystem because of our activities and our experience in producing cultivated meat and novel foods. For example, we do welcome the opportunity to work with some of the biotech innovators who are working on culture media, serum alternatives, scaffolds in itself. But also at the same time, this is where ASCO Ester can be a focal point to test and assess for the suitability, but also at the same time allow some of the cultivated meat companies to maximize the cell culture efficiencies. And we welcome the opportunities, whether you're coming from the cultivated meat scene itself or you're coming on the other end of the spectrum. We are providing tools and reagents that are enabling this whole industry. We welcome the opportunity to work very closely if that is of your area of interest. But I think right now, unfortunately, the global economic outlook isn't the best. We have seen situations whereby due to the fundraising situation across the world, perhaps, and usually most of the novel food companies, whether you're in cultivated meat or not, tend to have their own manufacturing facilities. But I think this is a situation where maybe it's a good time to pause and rethink about the move. At the same time, I'm not really shooting myself in the foot, but it is the reality that, the size of Singapore's population may not mean that you might want to come to Singapore as a priority market. But we are seeing a lot of companies coming to Singapore anyway, but that's also because across, as compared to the other parts of the world, we do have that clear line of sight to obtain full regulatory approval in Singapore. And using that, you can fast track your regulatory approval in your key markets, whereas in North America or other parts of the world. And on that note, I just want to leave you with a summary, and we hope that Esco Ester can be the right partner of choice if you're out there in the cultivated meat scene. And I may have finished ahead of time, probably, but I'm happy to yield my remaining time to the rest of the speakers who are part of this session, and I'll leave some of my contact details in this in the chat later. So if you want to reach out to me, do feel free to do so. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alvin. Impressive. I'm sure our attendees really enjoyed learning more about this collaboration and everything that you do.
No worries.
So now we have our session with Joshua Su, who is the CEO in Grow, and he will be talking about further collaboration opportunities between Singapore and European companies. So thank you very much, Joshua. I can see that you're ready there. We can see your screen perfectly. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much for having us here. And yeah, very excited to share with you what we're seeing here as the opportunities in Singapore and more broadly Asia. So I guess most of you are here because one, you're interested in Singapore, and it's an exciting time because I find, at least we find, that Singapore is not just a destination, but also a beginning. A lot of businesses that we have supported generally have found to use Singapore as a way, as a hub to do business. And with any internationalization, we find that it's a journey. And so we like to partner with a lot of the companies that we support to sort of use this as a gateway into Asia. So today, very happy to share with you on two things. I guess a quick introduction of who we are, to give you a sense of, secondly, I guess the opportunities that we're seeing for agri-food tech here in Asia. So let's dive straight into it. So quickly about Grow, we are Southeast Asia's first dedicated accelerator for agri-food tech and for impact. So we look at the entire value chain from on-farm all the way to the consumer. And we're a mission-driven accelerator, so very much wanting to inspire and support founders who have solutions that can deliver a benefit for people, place, and planet. Some key partners I want to quickly highlight because it actually colors the way in which we support support startups and also what we look out for. So on the top line there, you have our sister company. So AgFunder, as some of you would know in Europe, a VC very specialized in this area. And so we bring a very strong investability angle when it comes to selecting, but also supporting the startups' growth. On the right, you've got Food Futures and Farmers to Founders, so an Australian-based accelerator in food and agriculture. And with the three, I guess we bring a capability that spans quite, that combines a regional focus, but with global connections. Now, you would have also heard from Enterprise Singapore at the start of this session. And so we're one of the 5 accelerators that they have anchored here to help catalyze the ecosystem in Singapore. Given the strong interest in internationalization, a lot of our programs have also that lens to help companies expand across Asia or even from Asia into other markets globally. We have a really supportive partner, Innovate UK, where they're very keen to help their companies expand into Asia, into Australia, and we have a program to do so as such. So now just to share some of the impact and traction we've achieved in the last 3 years. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is to just show you the volume of activity that has happened in Singapore and Asia in a very short span of 3 years. So, prior to 2019, agri-food tech was a little bit of an unknown sector, but now everyone is actually leaning into it and saying, hey, we want to actually see what's new and novel here. And a lot of corporates are also looking to collaborate and partner with founders working in this space. We have since 2019 delivered 14 programs in total, accelerated 83 startups. Very glad to see that, from our scale up programs, there's 94% success rate, i.e. startups that are still operating, which is good, especially in this climate. They have cumulatively raised about 220 million USD in funding post our program. We have assessed a huge number of startups. They've created a huge number of jobs across our alumni. But more significantly is to see how much interest that we have here in Asia in terms of mentors and investors that are willing to support startups within this sector. So now that I've introduced briefly who we are, I'd like to cover more around, Asia and the opportunity here, which is, what you guys have came to find out more. So firstly, maybe to be able to share with you what Asia is looking for from the sense of our focus as an accelerator, the programs that we've supported, and the partners within our ecosystem. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of color of what Asia is up for. Now, in terms of focus, I did mention that we look at the end-to-end agri-food value chain. Generally, all the key mega food trends that we see globally have, some sort of stickiness or relevance here with Asia. But what we do see is how can we then adapt some of these solutions that we're looking overseas for an Asia context. For if it's agriculture, for example, it's relevance to smallholder farmers. If it's food, again, how does it relate to the consumer palate and needs here in Asia? So these are some examples of the themes that we have been particularly interested in. I won't go through it, but I'll just share that here with you. But in terms of stages of startups as well, look, I mean, with the partners we've worked with, whether it's research institutions, governments, corporates, we are looking for a whole range from early stage to late stage. But given this program, I guess, a key candidate or a good way for you to internationalize this would be if you're late stage, you're already home market ready. There is actually a lot of appetite to support you to scale here, be it from an investment lens or with a collaboration perspective. So we run a whole range of programs from idea stage to late stage, all with different partners. Ag Funder does invest directly into scale-ups in the third program on the screen. And then with late stage, we are actively creating a lot of corridors to fast track your ability to scale into Asia. Now, in terms of what we're seeing in the broader ecosystem, look, I mean, there's a lot of multinationals, agri-food multinationals who are headquartered here in Singapore. And increasingly, we're seeing a lot of them having mandate to find, how can they partner with new technologies to drive benefit for this market here. So if you are a B2B agri-food tech company, or if you have some sort of B2B2C play, there's definitely a lot of potential here to explore opportunities. From a fundraising lens, look, I mean, since we started in 2019 and the work that Ag Funder is doing, we're really galvanizing the investor community to lean into this space and invest. And I think if you have an impact focus or impact angle, I mean, it will also resonate with investors here across Asia. Government-wise, look, you have a very proactive Singapore government here that is willing to, help you do business in this region and expand across Asia. So I think probably enough mention from Ying Xuan and Tracy before, so I won't probably dive further into it. These are some of the companies we work with, just to give you a sense of, the ag and food companies who are interested, who you could reach out to engage conversations with. So that was a quick rundown, but now let's dig into the opportunities in Asia. And just like Europe, I mean, Asia is a very diverse and fragmented market. We say Asia, but actually there's so many different cultures, so many different languages there. So, yes, I will cover broadly the broad demographic across Asia to show the opportunities, but maybe more specifically look into Southeast Asia, which includes your Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, basically the 5 key Southeast Asian countries. And I'll highlight these opportunities from 3 areas. So as I said, the large macroeconomic perspective, then also looking in terms of, corporates, what are they looking for, which could be a very good way for you to sort of like secure a key scale-up partner or customer to then expand very quickly into Asia. And lastly, from a fundraising and investment angle, so three ways of different ways of how you might want to create your internationalization strategy. From a macroeconomic environment, look, all I can say is that Asia is hungry. We have a growing middle class. So by 2030, it will be 3.5 billion people here, of which will account for 60% of global consumption. In terms of farming, I mean, this is a highly fragmented landscape. Worldwide, there's 400 million smallholder farmers, i.e., farmers who have land of between 1 to 2 hectares, so very tiny. Of which 350 million are in Asia and 100 million in Southeast Asia. Now, they contribute to 80% of Asia's food supply. So if you have any technology that can sort of uplift their livelihood, help them tap into the financial system, support them with productivity and automation, this would be a huge opportunity for you. If you're looking to expand and tap into a new, segment of investors, again, yes, there is a growing appetite for investment. So the Ag Funder report shows that Asia will represent 30% of all global agri-food investments. And in 2012, about 55 billion has been raised. Now, if you're an ag tech company with an impact lens as well, that's good news because a Bain report has shown that there's a 1 trillion economic opportunity just in Southeast Asia. And the reason being is that because none of the ASEAN countries actually feature in the top 40 rank of the UN Sustainable Development Goal. So there's a huge opportunity for you to deliver impact within this space of ag and food. You've heard about the Singapore 30 by 30 plan. So there's a huge appetite and interest within Singapore to look for solutions to help them with local production. But at the same time, there's, when we talk about 30% for food security, there's 70% of, how does Singapore get its food? So you can look at technologies that help with supply chain traceability, resilience, logistics supply, packaging. All these things would be highly relevant and interested in Singapore's context. But more interestingly is that, you would have heard how Singapore is a very good place to do business. It's also a very strong innovation hub in terms of how much the government has invested into creating a very conducive environment for startups to operate in. And so given all these things that you have heard today in terms of partnerships, incentives, conducive environment, it then becomes a very interesting place for you to use it as a hub to do business in the region, in which is why we see Singapore being a very perfect gateway hub to tap into new markets for you to land here in Singapore and launch into neighboring markets. Now, that is all the macroeconomic, developments. Hopefully that gives you a sense of, why Asia or Singapore is a really interesting area to a market to focus. But now turning the lens a little in terms of, well, what are we also seeing from a corporate lens? What kind of solutions corporations are on the lookout for, which can then serve as your foothold into this market, to use them as a way to sort of validate, refine your solution for the Asian market and try to use that to scale and capture new customers. We've seen a lot of interest around sustainable packaging, supply traceability, ag inputs like biofertilizers, food as medicine. The whole upcycling and decarbonization is also a very strong area of interest. And lastly, with ingredient tech, novel food ingredients, always with all like your Nestle's, Mondelez, Ferrero, all based here, they're very keen to look for new ingredients. And lastly, marketplace technologies to connect farmers to the end consumers. In terms of the kinds of support we have done over the last 3 years, we have been able to match a lot of these startups with corporates to prove out the technology, to try its adoption to new crops, if it's in the agriculture space. From the food side is again to look at how ingredients can be put into different formulations, to partner with cultivated meat companies here within Singapore, and also tap into the research institution and capability locally. So that is the lens from the corporate side. If you're looking from the investment angle, I mean, Ag Funder has been, as well as other, VCs in this space, has been really building the interest and understanding of how to invest in agri-food tech. So this shows roughly, I think about 30 portfolio companies in which we have invested in through Ag Funder. And you could see, I mean, these companies come from all around the world. You have the Como technology from Estonia, 3B from Italy, where else? Anina from Israel. You've got Future Fields and Cell Ag, or Future Fields from Canada, Fagos from France. So yeah, we're seeing, you know, companies from across the world actually seeing Singapore as a key place for them to fundraise and help them tap into a new set of investors. And just one last slide in terms of from the investment side. Look, I'm not sure who is in the audience, but if you are an investor yourself, interested in, like, you know, local startups, there's actually a lot of activity, homegrown talent here that's, you know, ready to actually explore international markets. So, you know, definitely an area for you to lean in. But in terms of our land and launch program as well, we're creating a lot of corridors to connect, you know, overseas companies with Singapore and Asia. So we now have a corridor with UK and Singapore, UK and Australia through the work we're doing with Innovate UK. We have a corridor with Australia and Singapore as well. And now we're getting into a thematic focus to try just get, you know, future protein companies across traditional and new proteins to create an expressway for them to come wherever you are in the world into Singapore. And also from here, actively working with corporates to build partnerships so that we can, you know, find you opportunities that can fast track your adoption here in Singapore. So there you go. I hope that gives, you know, a very, very quick lightning speed around what the opportunities are here. Look, I'm here, happy to take any questions. If you want to find out more, just reach out to myself or Rebecca Sharp, our head of accelerators, and I'm more than happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I'm sure all of our brains are now working on ways to collaborate and how to take advantage of all these opportunities. And because we have given an overview of all the opportunities that are available at the moment and that we can grab, we wanted to finish this session with the help of Laurent Gulbestre, who is our international and intercultural speaker today, who will be showing us how to successfully deploy all these opportunities that we've learned about. So he will be teaching us how to navigate those differences to make sure that we accomplish all of these collaborations successfully. So Laurent, if you'd like to share your screen.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hello.
I have a problem to set up my video. I hope you understand me and you can hear me.
Yes, definitely. Would you like help with the there you go.
Okay, here we are.
Perfect.
Can you see me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, okay, very good. Okay, let's share my screen. Hello everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, full screen. It's okay?
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Yes, we are going to talk about culture. This is something that we don't think about when we do business, because usually when you do business with some strangers, you think about technical aspect, project aspect, but rarely you think about culture. And this is the main thing that you have to think about when you do business, because this is the best thing to get confidence from each other. So let's talk about culture. And the thing is, the objective of this session, of course, is to optimize the cross-cultural relationship with Singaporean people, but also with different countries like Germany, England, etc. So let's talk about culture. The thing that I would like to tell you is that I don't have the truth. So we are going to talk about the psychological aspect, and sometimes maybe you won't share what I'm going to say, but it doesn't matter really, because what is the main thing to think about is how can I approach someone and how can I share with him the information that I have. The first thing that we have to think about is what is culture. Culture is a complex system which has been established by a group of people at the beginning and shared by these people. There are many different things. We can say that there are values at the center of the culture. When we have knowledge, heart, values, laws, rules, religion. And when we start working with a culture, we have to think, first of all, of the values. And it's quite easy to go in internet to find what is the value of Singapore, what is the value of German, what is the value of English people. So the first thing that you have to do when you work abroad is to think about what is the main values of these people and how can I find it on internet. Concerning European culture, we cannot say that there is a European culture. Europe, as you know, is a very big continent with many different countries on it. So to be more clear, I have shared this continent in 4 different cultures. I would say that there is Anglo-Saxon culture, Germanic, Slavic, and Latin culture. So when you want to work with Europe, you have to think about the different countries on this culture because we are very different one from each other. But we can divide Europe in 4 main cultures. Concerning now Singapore, it's a melting pot, as you said, and you said in the presentation that it was a quite small country, and I do agree. But we can say that it's a melting pot as well of Chinese people, Malaysian people, etc. So it's a melting pot, but we can talk about one culture, Singaporean culture. And what I would like to do with you is to think and to establish a board with different indicators that allow us to work with Singaporean culture. So you have, as you know, Chinese, Malays, mainly Chinese people, but you have a melting pot. And because this is a small country, and there are around 5 million people on this island, they work very close by each other, and they have adopted one single culture. So what are the values for Singaporean? Maybe you won't share everything, as I said, but I hope that you will share 80% of what I said. So concerning Singaporean, the main culture, we can say, and the main values are the food, sorry, I cannot see my screen. Okay. Food and drink, shopping, melting pot of identities, respect of law, and Singlish. This is the things that for when we think about Singapore and we are European, we have to think about how can I behave with these people and how can I respect these people. And respecting them, it means that you have to adopt a part of their value. The first indicator that I want to share with you, it's concerning communication. How can I communicate with these people? How can I communicate effectively together? I want to make a very small exercise with you by asking 2 small questions. Very easy question. For example, if you think of what is a speed car or what is a rich person, you have different answers concerning communication. For example, if I say concerning what is a speed car, if I say it's a car which goes fast, what does that mean exactly? It does not mean anything for a Singaporean or for a Germanic people. If you don't bring a real value, if you don't bring a real facts and figures, this is maybe a different meaning for each one of us. But if you say, for me, a speed car, it's a car which goes over 200 kilometers, for example, by saying 200 kilometers, you will be a lot more precise. So when I do talk every day, when I do talk in English, I have the choice, if I pay attention, I have the choice to be more clear, more precise by using very often facts and figures. And by doing so, the foreigner that I will work with will understand better what I'm saying. Same thing for what is a rich person. It depends where you are. It depends who you are. So for example, if you say a rich person, it's someone who can afford what he wants. You have right, but the meaning of that does not mean anything. It depends on what you are thinking of. But if you say if someone who earns more than $10,000 per month, for example, or $2,000 per month, here again, by putting values, facts and figures, you will be more precise on the people in front of you will understand in a better way what you mean. So when I do do communicate with someone else. I have to pay attention of that. I have to be more explicit than implicit. On my cultural, for example, if I am Spanish, if I am French, I am used to work with maybe a lot of implicit information. But because this guy in front of me, this guy or this girl in front of me is in the same culture, he will understand what I am not saying. If I stay implicit, it will be more easier for him to understand what I'm saying because he is the same culture. But if you're traveling abroad, if you want to work with foreigners, and it is the case, you have to take care of that to be more explicit because each meaning can have a different value. So let's go in these four cultures that I said concerning Europe and the Singaporean culture. Concerning Latin culture, Italy, Spain, France, Greece, we can say mainly that this is high context culture. What does that mean? It means that they are talking with a lot of concepts, ideas, under meaning, and these people are not very clear concerning facts and figures when they are talking. So if you want to talk with and work with Latin people, you will have to pay attention by saying, what do you mean? Can you tell me more? You said that it was very clean. What does that mean? It was very safe. What does that mean? Because the meaning will be different. So pay attention when you work with Latin culture of that, because they are high context. Germanic culture is very low context, at the opposite of Latin. So when you work with Germanic, pay attention because they are going to use a lot of facts and figures. And if you want to work with these people, you will have to bring yourself a lot of facts and figures to be professionals on your side. Anglo-Saxon low context, Slavic high context. Concerning Singaporean culture, I could say high context, like Latin culture. It means that when they are talking, they are using facts. No, they are not, sorry, they are not using facts and figures. They are mainly using concepts, ideas. But to work with these people, we have to say and to use very often, what do you mean? Can you tell me more? And to take your shovel, and to go deeper to understand really what is the meaning of what is said. There is no judgment in that. We cannot judge someone or a culture, but we can pay attention of this communication structure to be more efficient. And we can evaluate and measure as well to be more precise concerning these things. So here you have Germany, Swedish, USA, etc., etc. And concerning Singapore, you can notice that they are very contextual, roughly like French and Italian. So when you discuss with high context culture, with Singaporean culture, usually they will use indirect communication, they will pay attention of a posture, you have to pay attention of the tone of a voice, expression. You will have to talk about private life as well, because it's open culture and it's low, high context culture. The second pillar that I would like to see with you, the single indicator that I would like to see, it's concerning the time, consideration of time. According to the culture where you live, the time is different. You have mainly two types of time. You have people who are working a lot with a calendar, and they are very precise with the time. They organize the task one after one, and they think a lot with doing something. What do you do? What do you do this weekend? What do you do tonight? What do you do in this meeting? They're on a to-do thinking. They organize the task one after one, and it's difficult for them to put one task over one over. And you have other culture, other people in the world who are thinking on a special time. What does that mean? It means that the time is not linear. It's like a space. And what is important for them is to get confidence, is to take time with the people that you are working with the people that you are doing business with, to be sure that it is the real one. So with these people, you have to take time to understand him and to know him. So in the world, you have two considerations of time. Some people are working on a with very linear, and some others are working on a special time. So let's have a look concerning Europe and Singapore. Concerning Europe, the Latin are monochronic minus. So it means that concerning Latin, they are roughly on time, but there is a delay very often for the dinner, for the project. They say sometimes that they're going to send you a fax or mail on Thursday, and very often they will send it on maybe Friday, on Monday by saying, sorry, I did not have time yesterday or on Thursday to send it to you, but you will have the mail or the fax. Concerning Germanic, as you can notice, they are monochronic plus plus. It means that you have to be right on time. If you say something, you have to respect it, or not 5 minutes delay, because these people are used to work sharp on time. And when you say that you are going to send an email on Thursday, you will have to send it on Thursday and not Friday. It's too late. If you do that, you will seem not professional at all. Concerning Anglo-Saxon cultures, monochronic plus, it's a little bit less than Germanic one, but pay attention over time. Concerning Slavic culture, it depends on which country you go. And concerning Singaporean culture, it's better for you to be on time, but the Singaporean culture need you to make business before doing business. They need to understand what you are exactly. So adapt your time when you are working with a polychronic culture. Accept to take time with people to discuss about private life, as I said, to go and visit maybe the city. To be sure that you are not going to make any mistake on your side, it's better to be right on time, but sometimes on the other side, there will be a little bit delays, but considering business, I advise you to be on your side, right on time, and accept sometimes some delays. As I said, go for walk, drink, meal, go outside for restaurants. Even if you are tired, it's not good to say no. Even if you are tired or if they propose you anything, it's good to say yes to keep harmony in a group. The last pillar that I would like to talk about is a relation to a certainty. It is some thinking about, do I dare to move forward, or is it difficult for me to move forward in a project? I am scared or not. I am on a to-go thinking or not to-go thinking. So according to the culture where you are, some people are very dynamic and they want to be on a go, and some others try to take time to understand what's going on, and they are on a no-go thinking. Once again, there is not a judgment about this situation. It's only to be sure that to move forward, you have to have all the data. So, of course, tomorrow is different. So how are we consider the difference? If you say, for me, different is dangerous, you are on a no-go thinking. You want to have all the project in your mind. You want to have all the data in your mind to move forward. And for you, maybe it's sometimes difficult to move forward. If for you different tomorrow is a new richness, you are on a go thinking. So it means that you will maybe have not all the data in the project, but you are on the action process. If you are on a dangerous thinking, you are on a no-go. The doubt is the way of reflection. If you are on a new richness, tomorrow it's a go thinking, you are on action. So when you work with a go or a no-go, you have to adapt your presentation. For example, if you are with a no-go thinking, you have to bring a lot of information, examples of things that you have succeeded. You have to take time to reassure the patient. If you are with people on a go thinking, you will have to move forward with them, take action, and go quickly, use emotion, and engage yourself sometimes with the guy in the project. So Singapore is mainly on a go thinking. Go for it instead of no go. And as you can notice, when we work with Germany, Japanese, French, Italian on the right side of the graphics, they are mainly on a no go. So it will take more time, and you will have to bring samples, data to reassure these people to move forward. They will often say, yes, but. So with Singaporean culture, you have to show how your product are going to improve their lives by working with you. Use novelty because they are on a go thinking. Try to make the product, try to test the product with them, try to make it touch with them because they want to touch, they want to have emotion concerning the project. And please project your partner in the future with your project or your product. So if we take the board, what can we see? We see that concerning Latin, as I said, is no-go. So remember, no-go, it's not the action, the way of thinking. You have to bring data, you have to bring examples, you have to take time to reassure these people. Concerning Germanic, they are on a no-go plus plus, so it's a lot more than the Latin one. So be sure that the product is very well tested. It's not a completely new product. You have sold already 1 million pieces. Like this, you will reassure these people. Concerning the people Anglo-Saxon, it's a go plus. So take action. The action is the way of reflection. Slavic is a go as well. And concerning Singaporean, you may know it's a go plus. We've got around 10 indicators like this that we can work on. We saw only the communication, explicit, implicit in red. We saw the time, polychronic or monochronic, and we saw the certainty. We say a certainty avoidance index, UAI, and we can measure, as you see in the graphics, these sculptures. If you have any question, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much for this presentation.
Thank you very much, Laurent. And thank you for teaching us how to be more intercultural so that we can communicate better and establish better relationships. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
So I believe we got some interested insights on collaboration opportunities and how to make them thrive. Hopefully you found it as interesting and helpful as it was for us. And for now, we would like to wrap up this session. So let me really quickly share my screen. Or not as quickly as I would have liked. Whoops. One quick second. So we don't have any questions, but please feel free to forward them to us if they arise after the session, and we will forward them to the relevant speakers. I would like to invite you to our next online activities. We will have a workshop on April the 20th. It's plant-based and alternative proteins, new ingredients, source of innovation. And we have our following one on 11th May on the importance of food waste reduction in the supply chain and valorizing side streams like brewer spent grain. So I'm sure you'll find them really valuable for your work. And now, before we wrap up the session, just a reminder to please log in the platform for matchmaking event that is taking place today until noon. And just a general reminder that you don't need to wait for these events to access the platform, complete your profile, and schedule meetings, because this is open 24/7. So please go on the platform, browse with the participants, and if you find a relevant meeting partner, which I'm positive you will, request a meeting, and you can have a meeting outside of the events if it suits you better. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you for everyone who joined us and followed this webinar. And I hope you had an amazing time and that you found it valuable and you learned from this webinar. So thank you very much, and see you now on the matchmaking platform.